Little 6-year-old Corey Micciolo's mother, Brianna Micciolo, had him when she was just 17 years old. Corey's father, Christopher Greger, was 22 years old when he was born. Brianna raised Corey, in Stafford, New Jersey, on her own for his first 5 years. Christopher first came into Corey's life in September 2019. They then shared custody after Christopher petitioned the court for joint custody. Brianna had an ongoing struggle with an addiction to illegal substances. Because of this, she lost custody of Corey in January 2020. She was able to get sober and gained visitation rights by October 2020. In December 2020, she relapsed again, which she did not share with Christopher. She then got sober again in February 2021. It was after Corey's third visit with his father in September 2019 when Brianna first grew concerned about the safety of her son. Corey came home with a busted lip and swollen face, but neither he nor his father would say what happened. In March 2021, Brianna filed an order to show cause seeking emergency custody of Corey. This was after she was informed of an incident that happened and saw the recording. Corey and his father were at the Atlantic Heights Clubhouse Fitness Center and Christopher put his son on a treadmill. Christopher increased both the speed and incline of the treadmill, as Corey desperately tried to keep up. The first time Corey fell and slided off the machine, Christopher picks him back up and appears to bite the child's head while forcing him back onto the belt. Christopher holds his son down as he attempts to gain footing. After Corey falls again, his father finally decreases the speed and lowers the treadmill's incline. The Division of Child Protection and Permanency, DCPP, investigated her report that Christopher abused Corey by forcing him to run on a treadmill. DCPP had seen the video, and a caseworker photographed and investigated bruising on Corey 6 days after that incident. A judge did not grant Brianna's request for emergency custody of Corey. The preliminary findings submitted by DCPP about the incident played a crucial role in the judge's decision, says the ruling. The ruling notes, however, that the court does not find that Corey is in danger of imminent and irreparable harm. Therefore, the court does not find a temporary modification of the parties' custody and parenting time arrangement appropriate at this time. On April 1, 2021, Brianna had Christopher take Corey to the doctor. It was at this appointment that Corey allegedly revealed that his father forced him to exercise because he was too fat. Brianna dropped off Corey at Christopher's home as was ordered by the court, at about 9 a.m. the following day. Later that day, Christopher brought the limp body of his 6-year-old son, Corey, to an emergency room at a hospital. He then phoned Brianna to let her know. Christopher said that Corey woke up from a nap stumbling, slurring his words, and he experienced nausea and shortness of breath. Corey had a CT scan where he began having seizures. 2 hours after he arrived at the hospital, Corey lost his life. On the same day, Brianna reached out to her boyfriend via Facebook and asked for a type of illegal substance. The doctors said Corey lost his life from pneumonia. 2 days after Corey's life ended, Christopher was pulled over by police for speeding in a construction zone. In body cam footage of the interaction, Christopher can be seen blaming Brianna for his son's demise. Christopher said, "If Corey didn't have an illegal substance addict mother, then he'd still be alive. That's been going through my head this whole drive. She's a special kind of dirtbag." Brianna said she reported suspected abuse over 100 times in 18 months, but no action was taken. Brianna wants to know why it was only after her son's demise that the DCPP took her claim seriously that Corey's father was abusing him. Brianna said, "I did everything. I told them, I filmed his bruises, I recorded him telling me and my sister and my mother what his father was doing." Brianna says she believes her claims only emboldened Christopher. Brianna stated, "The more he got away with it, the worse the abuse got. And he was aware after the first time I reported it in 2019. When the investigators went through the records, there were 7 reports of abuse against Christopher, none of which were substantiated prior to Corey's demise. They also found a single report of abuse made by Christopher against Brianna, which was never substantiated by the agency. Brianna was never charged with abusing Corey. She was also immediately cooperative with police in the investigation of her son's demise. Brianna's boyfriend of several years told police he never saw her abuse Corey. A longtime family friend of the Micciolos also told police Brianna was a good mother who he never saw hit Corey, but noted Corey told him Christopher hit him. A friend of Christopher also recalled him throwing his son off a boat. After Corey's demise, Christopher left the state. When he was eventually located, he checked out of the Tennessee hotel he informed law enforcement he would be staying at without notifying officials. Christopher was arrested on July 7, 2021, on child neglect charges following an investigation into the gym footage. It wasn't until a consulting forensic pathologist reviewed the case in September 2021 that the manner of Corey's demise was determined to be a slaying. Dr. Thomas Andrew believes Corey suffered an acute traumatic injury to his heart 4 to 12 hours before his life ended. Dr. Andrew found what he described as evidence of chronic abuse, including blunt impact injuries of the chest and abdomen with laceration of the heart, left pulmonary contusion, laceration and contusion of the liver. On March 9, 2022, prosecutors formally charged Christopher with ending his son's life and ordered him to be held without bond at the Ocean County Jail. In his opening statement for Christopher's trial, Assistant Ocean County Prosecutor Jamie Schron told the court that the morning Corey's mother dropped him off at his dad's house, the 6-year-old was fine. Brianna had noticed some bruising on her son the day before. This prompted the trip to the hospital where doctors told her apart from said bruises, Corey was in good health. Christopher's lawyer was suggesting that Brianna was using illegal substances when Corey lost his life, which could be laying the groundwork for her potential negligence. Brianna confirmed she did ask her boyfriend for some, but she went on to say that she did not do illegal substances that day. In a probable cause affidavit, Brianna's mother, Rebecca, says that her daughter got pregnant after being assaulted by Christopher. They never had a relationship. Christopher's attorney, Mario Gallucci, responded to that claim in a statement saying, "Unfortunately, Ms. Micciolo's mother has a very vivid imagination. There is a reason she lost custody of Corey, and at this time I am not permitted to comment on that." The defense argument throughout the case was that Corey lost his life from sepsis caused by pneumonia and not blunt force trauma to the chest and abdomen as concluded by the Orange County Medical Examiner's Office. A jury in New Jersey found Christopher not guilty of taking Corey's life on May 31, 2024, but the jury did convict Christopher on the lesser charge of aggravated manslaughter, which carries a sentence of 10 to 30 years in prison in the state of New Jersey. Christopher shook his head in apparent disbelief and anger after hearing the verdict and later appeared to be fighting back tears while Brianna openly wept in court. Jurors also convicted Christopher of endangering the welfare of a child after viewing the video from the gym. The incident did not end Corey's life, but the prosecution argued that Christopher's overall cycle of abuse ultimately led to his son's life being lost. Assistant Ocean County Prosecutor Christine Lento argued that Christopher inflicted blunt force injuries on Corey the day of his demise as punishment after the boy's mother was 14 hours late bringing him home. Mario Gallucci, Christopher's attorney, said his client was not surprised by the verdict. He also said his client knew it was just the first step in a long battle. Gallucci confirmed that Christopher plans to appeal the jury's verdict. On August 2, 2024, Christopher was sentenced to serve 20 years for aggravated manslaughter and 5 years for endangering the welfare of a child, to be served consecutively. Judge Ryan noted that while Corey's family had requested Christopher to be sentenced to the max, the 40 years allowable under the law would not stand up to legal appeal. Christopher Greger addressed the court, denying responsibility for taking the life of his son, but apologizing for causing him pain. An emotional Brianna said, "We're happy with the verdict and we thank the prosecutor's office. He deserves to be in jail. He's a very bad man." On July 8, 2023, 33-year-old Army veteran, Danicka Bergeson, was found by authorities inside her Hopkins, Minnesota apartment, buried under layers of blankets with a plastic bag over her head. She was known to her family as a smart, honest person. She had a huge smile that was very engaging. She graduated with a degree in animal science. She also spent time as a medic in the U.S. Army and was once named Soldier of the Cycle. Everything with her was always black and white. She knew exactly what was right and wrong and she never broke the rules. Danicka worked at a veterinary clinic but had to quit due to an Army injury. Danicka's father, David Bergeson, said that recently she has been struggling with an abusive relationship with 40-year-old Matthew Brenneman. She once ended up with 17 stitches in her arm from a big slash and stitches in the back of her head from an assault. Matthew was charged in April 2023 with assaulting Danicka, striking and biting her, but he told police he was so intoxicated that he did not know what was happening. He was released from jail the next day. After the April incident, Matthew allegedly sent text messages to a friend claiming he gave Danicka a black eye and she deserved it, if any woman ever has. Danicka also partially blamed herself for the assault because she was intoxicated. 1 month later, in May, he then assaulted her again. He was biting, striking and choking her and saying he was going to take her life. About another month later, in June, he pleaded guilty in both domestic assault cases, and as part of his parole deal, he was released from jail and was ordered not to contact Danicka pending his August sentencing. Matthew then went to visit Danicka straight after being released, at the apartment, even though he was legally prohibited from having contact with her. The defendant shared that he was there for a week or so, adding, "To the best of my recollection." The two watched fireworks together on the 4th of July. Around July 2nd, Danicka's friends and family started getting worried about her, and on July 7th, a day before her body was found, her mother received correspondence from her phone that did not sound like it was coming from her. On the day Danicka's body was found, the building manager at Danicka's apartment building reported groaning, yelling, and banging sounds coming from her unit. Hopkins police found Danicka deceased in her apartment. Officers first spotted Danicka's decomposed hand buried in layers of blankets, and it was determined that she had been deceased for a few days. Police also detected an overwhelming odor of bleach coming from the bathroom, where they found Matthew convulsing on the floor after he had drunk the bleach. He had scrape marks across his face, arms, legs, as well as distinctive scratches to his back consistent of fingernail scrapes. Matthew was taken to the hospital for treatment, and he was arrested. Police also found what appeared to be bloody clothing in a guest bedroom in the apartment. Matthew allegedly left a series of notes strewn about the apartment, claiming his innocence and claiming that he had never been physically abusive with a woman before. However, the mother of Matthew's child has claimed he had been violent with her as well, on one occasion allegedly pinning her to the bed and hitting her. Danicka's father said, "We often said that we dread this call, because we almost felt we knew it was coming at some point, because it just repeated itself over and over." Like many abuse victims, Danicka's family says she struggled to leave and often did not want to report the abuse. Her father also said, "That was the hard part, just not being able to find a safe place for her." Now her family is hoping for justice. The autopsy revealed numerous wounds across Danicka's body, and the nature of her demise was classified undetermined. Matthew was indicted on 1 count of first-degree charges and 2 counts of second-degree charges in the demise of Danicka. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty said, "Intimate partner violence requires a powerful response. It is an act that leaves traumatized survivors and devastated families in its wake. We are aggressively prosecuting those who commit this violence." Matthew, who was originally arrested on a second-degree case charge, also had his bail increased to $2 million. He now faces life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, if convicted. The upgraded first-degree charge was for slaying while committing domestic abuse with a past pattern of domestic abuse. One of the second-degree charges was for slaying while under a restraining order for protection. His attorneys, Emmett Donnelly and Sarah Koziel, sought to dismiss the case by citing Hennepin County Medical Examiner Andrew Baker's report that was unable to determine a cause or manner of demise. But prosecutors cited other evidence, including alleged notes Matthew wrote before trying to take his own life. These notes tied him to the crime. He wrote, "I do not wish to divulge what all transpired, personal things exclusive to Danicka and myself to know or seem as though I'm trying to justify the many terrible, absurd or unacceptable things that happened between us." He also added, "I never loved any woman I was romantically involved with as profoundly and honestly as Danicka." Matthew pleaded guilty to second-degree charges while under a restraining order. He also admitted to a pair of aggravating factors: committing the act in the privacy of a victim's own bedroom and treating her with particular cruelty by allowing her body to decompose following demise. The current criminal complaint includes documentation of a July jail phone call between Matthew and a family member in which they discussed that a crime of passion could carry a lighter sentence. Matthew's attorney read a factual basis for his guilty plea, with the defendant verbally agreeing with each point. So, what happened on the day Danicka lost her life? According to a police statement, the couple, who were staying together on and off, got into an argument, and she asked him to leave. The argument happened in the bedroom and turned physical, and he restrained her on the bed. He agreed that Danicka had some health vulnerabilities while abstaining from alcohol. Matthew said, "I believe it was day 2 or 3 of not drinking, which he knew was dangerous for her." At some point during the struggle, Matthew agreed. Danicka stopped resisting. He left the room, and several days later he realized she was deceased. He admits he did not render physical aid, check on her or call law enforcement. Defense attorney Sarah Koziel asked Matthew, days later when you realized she was deceased, that was when you put a plastic bag over her decomposing body?" To which he replied, "Yes." After hearing Matthew tell the court what happened, Danicka's father said, "I think today's details are really painful. To hear him tell his story and us not to get to tell our story, it's difficult, and he only has to tell enough just to meet the criteria of the charges. So, it's like he can make up what he wants as he goes along, and that's what we have to listen to, and that is really horrible." On August 23, 2024, Matthew was sentenced to 285 months, 23.75 years, with 411 days of credit for time served. 21-year-old Anggy Diaz and her husband, 23-year-old Jared Dicus, got married in October 2022 at a courthouse in Texas. The judge that married them posted a photo of the seemingly happy couple on his Facebook page. Overall, the couple seemed very happy. Anggy often posted happy photos of them, and in a Christmas photo post Jared commented, "Merry Christmas my beautiful wife, my trophy." But, just a few weeks later, on January 11, 2023, deputies got a call about someone who lost their life near Magnolia, about an hour outside of Houston, Texas. Police arrived at the property that had two houses on, a main house and a smaller cabin behind the main house. Jared's parents lived in the main house while Jared and his wife lived in the cabin. Jared's parents were the ones that had called 911 to report the demise at their property. First responder discovered a horrific scene in the cabin where they found Angie's body, decapitated and dismembered, with numerous stab wounds. The residence was covered in blood. A large kitchen knife was likely the weapon used in this case. The scene was described as gruesome at best by Sheriff Troy Guidry. Jared was taken into custody immediately on a slaying charge, and police arrived at the scene and was booked into the local jail. He did not make a statement right away, but later confessed to slaying Anggy. Anggy was originally from Nicaragua. She had been in the United States for about 3 years. According to her friends, she had been working 2 jobs so that she could send money back to Nicaragua to pay for a relative's cancer treatment. This showed what kind of person Anggy was. One of her jobs was at a local Hispanic butcher shop that was also like a convenience store. According to Waller County Sheriff's Office, Jared had a history of domestic violence. 2 months before Jared executed his wife, he was arrested on a DWI charge. Court records show he threatened a police officer and staff at the local jail. After punching windows, he was placed in a restraint chair. Local deputies had also responded to the same property more than once for reports of domestic violence. The same day Jared executed Anggy, he stopped by the butcher shop where Anggy worked. Surveillance footage showed him walking in and grabbing a beer from the cooler. He walked out with his beer without paying for it and started drinking it as he got to his car. This happened just a short while after he ended her life, but before his parents were alerted of what happened. A motive in the slaying was not released by police, but prosecutors said during the pre-trial phase of the case, potential mental health issues were raised regarding the defendant's competency to stand trial. But, after a court-ordered examination for competency, Jared was deemed competent. His bond was initially set for $500,000, but District Attorney Sean G. Whitmore argued for a $1 million bond shortly after the slaying. The DA cited Jared's violent history and the seriousness of his latest crime, and a Waller County judge agreed and raised the bond to $1 million. DA Whitmore said in a statement, "Waller County does not tolerate domestic violence. Heinous crimes like this one will not go unanswered. We will seek justice for the victims of domestic violence and send a message to the perpetrators that here, we fight for our victims." Angie's demise was tragic, but her family said they have no room for hate in their hearts. One of Angie's aunts described the support they have received as incredible. Another one of her aunts said Anggy was a beautiful light and that's how they will remember her. Her family said her demise isn't a goodbye, instead, it's a see you later when they meet again. Angie's remains will be sent to her home country of Nicaragua, where her family will be waiting for her with open arms. On July 31, 2024, Jared pled guilty to slaying his wife. On August 7, 2024, he was sentenced to 40 years behind bars by District Court Judge Gary Cheney. Jared will not be eligible for parole until 2043.